Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hello, my friends, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about ways to take care of yourself with self-compassion when you are needing to perhaps throw some compromise into the stressors and the situations that you are dealing with. Life will life at us, and there's no getting past this. It's very easy for us to sit down in a place when things are feeling good, when everything is feeling balanced, we feel like we're in momentum, and we feel like we can stay the course with what life is throwing at us. But then something does happen. Someone gets sick. That could be someone in your home. It could be somebody at work, right? The staffing changes. You've got new things that you need to be navigating, perhaps a scary diagnosis yourself or in a loved one. There are many things that will throw us incredible curveballs that we need to be able to navigate because that's just real life. This is something that I talk about very frequently with my patients who are navigating a weight loss journey. We can have all the plans in place for when things are going well, and there's no travel, there's no illness, there's no holidays. We need to be able to navigate, though, when those things happen, because those stressors, those changes of circumstance are going to happen no matter what. We may as well plan for them to the best of our ability. And so this conversation today is really about how do we navigate this time? How do we introduce more self-compassion into the situation, even if we are needing to incorporate some compromise, even if, we're just dealing with a time of stress and uncertainty. So here goes. Number one, and this is crucial for physicians and other high achievers, we need to be able to recognize that we are very good at hustling. We are very good at rallying our resources and throwing 120% into whatever situation we have in front of us. But, my friends, that does not always help us. And as we very well know, that is unsustainable. Instead, the real challenge is, how can I recognize that I have an ability to hustle? How can I recognize that, yes, I am going to show up for the situation, but that I'm going to need to sit in the discomfort, that there may not be a whirlwind of actions that I can do that will help to alleviate the stress. I'm going to give an example of navigating a breast cancer diagnosis because that is a very real circumstance that unfortunately too many of us navigate. Somebody out there who does this kind of research, I want to see what the statistics are on women physicians with breast cancer because I feel like it is extremely high in our population. That is a different side note, but please do that study because I feel like we get more breast cancer than other groups of women. But put that aside, when you have a new diagnosis of breast cancer, let's say you're sitting initially on the abnormal mammogram, then you have your biopsy, then you're waiting for visits, right? This is very real life. This happens and you have to sit and wait until the next step occurs. Meanwhile, your internal alarm systems are going off because it's telling you that something is on fire, right? And what do we do in response to a fire? We as physicians, we are used to jumping all in. We are used to hustling. We are used to scrambling. How do I throw myself into that code, right? So I can help and I can do things. But unfortunately, in these circumstances, we often need to sit in the discomfort of knowing mostly what needs to happen, but having to sit in the discomfort of allowing things to unfold as they will, right? If any of us faces something like a cancer diagnosis, you know that you're sitting in this space of knowing the steps that need to happen, knowing that somebody needs to look at this study and then the biopsy and then this and then determine the treatment plan, right? There are all these things, and you know sort of where those levers are. And it feels like a true emergency. And yet, that is not how this kind of care unfolds. We have to sit in the discomfort of the slowness, of the unfolding of it. And there are so many other examples. This is just one way to think about it. But that recognition that I know how to hustle, I know how to throw everything I've got at a problem and take care of things. And yet in this circumstance, I can't do that. I'm going to acknowledge my own discomfort with being in that space. I think that we need to start with this because it is just very difficult to navigate that, right? We are not people who like to sit in discomfort. We like to alleviate discomfort. But when it's our own discomfort, I think we also don't do a good job of managing that. So let's recognize what's going on, right? Let's bring in the self-compassion and recognize that anybody in a similar circumstance would be feeling the way that I do. That it makes sense that I feel the way that I do, right? And it makes sense that me as a problem solver, as a high achiever, as a physician, wants to throw all my energy into getting an answer and making a move. But in some circumstances, we can't do that. This is just a problem that has to unfold over time. It has to be managed over time. Take a breath. Another lesson here is knowing the thought loops that we have historically gotten stuck in and being able to come up with compassionate responses to those thought loops when they occur. When we have difficult circumstances, our brain responds in a way that it has learned to respond in response to, but that's a lot of the word respond, but in response to similar previous stressors. I don't know why I have this response, but I know that for me, sometimes when something big is going on that is stressful, including right now, my brain tells me that I am trapped, that I am stuck, that there is no getting out of a situation. Now, I don't know why. I could probably psychoanalyze and try and figure that out, but I need to recognize for myself when I'm feeling trapped, when I'm feeling stuck in a situation, right? That is my brain's typical response to a stressor, including what's going on right now. So if I can pause in that, if I can see, oh yeah, I'm having that thought again, right? Then I get to respond to it with a compassionate alternative. I'm not actually stuck. I'm actually choosing to be here. I'm choosing to be here for my family, to help be part of the leadership for navigating this particular challenge that is going on in my family. I'm not stuck, but that doesn't stop my brain from giving me that thought loop. Do you see what's going on here? So if you can recognize that during times of stress, you have a similar thought. It could be I'm stuck. It could be I'm no good. It could be you don't know what to do. Any number of different thoughts that will just spin itself around and around in your brain. What will you do to respond to it? Knowing that I don't have to not have the thought to have made progress, right? As much progress as I have made in my journey, and I would say I have made a lot of progress not getting stuck in these thought loops, I will still have the thought that I am stuck. And I don't have to judge myself for that thought coming up, right? That is probably some deeply wired programming that has come up, I know, in a number of different circumstances. The thought loop is not the problem. The problem is navigating, all right, I recognize that this thought loop is going on. I know what it's like to have this thought continue to spin around in my mind. How will I respond to it? Again, bringing in that self compassion. It is a normal human phenomenon to have recurrent thought loops, to feel like you have no control over it. But when we learn how to recognize our thought patterns and be able to respond to them differently, we can get ourselves unstuck. But the answer is not that I never have that thought loop happen again. The answer is just I know what to do. I trust myself to be able to navigate this thought loop when it occurs. Number 3 is allowing yourself to have stress responses. So we have thought loops that we might get stuck in, and we have stress responses that happen perhaps in response to the thought loops, or just our body's sort of cravings and desire to relieve the difficult feelings, right? So again, I'll give you an example here. When I feel stressed, and I know that this will resonate with so many of you, my response is often go shopping. Now, sometimes that is sort of obsessive shopping for groceries and household supplies. Man, can I just tell you, February of 2020, as things were unfolding, right, as we were staring down the face of the pandemic, but things had not shut down, boy, did this kick into gear, right? I was loading up cartfuls of stuff, as much stuff as I could imagine. Now, I did not hoard toilet paper, friends. I bought, I think, a normal amount of toilet paper, unlike the people who were filling up their garages, right? But I could see in advance, right, that this was coming, that we were going to be hitting some shutdowns. We hadn't quite hit them yet, right? So stock up on food, like it just kind of kicked in. So you can see that this stress response is somewhat helpful, somewhat, right? I mean, we needed to have food, and I wasn't sure what things were going to be looking like as we sort of went into shutdowns, right? And having never navigated that before. So, some parts of my brain would be like, well, of course you need to go shopping, right? Of course you need to solve the problem of not having the stuff that you need. But of course, we know that in stress responses, when we scratch that itch, the relief is very temporary, especially in circumstances like this, right? The relief is temporary. So we want to figure out what is the space where I can allow for some of the stress response, where I'm not trying to white knuckle and not tap into it, but I'm also not getting lost in the sort of craving of the stress response. So again, I've noticed at this time, right, my desire to go shopping, sometimes, yes, for groceries, and sometimes for all the frivolous crap that we love to buy, um, it has flared up. And I can allow that. I can recognize what's going on. I can figure out, okay, I have this strong desire. What will I do? Now, my pantry is pretty damn well stocked at this point. I'm not going to lie about that. But I also, make myself go and look at it a little bit and say, you know what? It is okay. Like, you have this desire, you have this feeling. Like, if you go out and buy more things, that will relieve the stress of what's going on. It's not really true. So it is okay to go buy some stuff. It is okay to do that. I am not wasting food, not throwing things away that have rotted. We are using those things, but also just recognizing for myself, this stress response isn't really addressing the emotion, and I need to do other things to be able to recognize, yep, I'm having some difficult feelings. I'm having a difficult time, and allowing myself to have stress responses, to not judge myself, right? But to come towards myself with self-compassion. And we can ask ourselves the question, what is it that I really need here? What is it that I really want? I know for me, right, this stress response of shopping is seeking a very normal desire, again, in high achievers, for control. I wish I had more control over the situation that has unfolded. I don't. I have the ability to have the control and input and leadership. I have the ability to, you know, show up the way that I am able to show up and to try and take care of myself so that I can show up the way that I want, right? These are some things that I can control in the circumstances, but I don't actually control the circumstance itself. My desire to make sure that our house is incredibly well stocked with food or that we aren't going to run out of toilet paper or cleaning supplies or whatever it is that I'm shopping for comes from a very normal desire for more control. Again, I can notice that, I can recognize it, I can put my hand on my heart, and I can self-compassionately say, this is so normal. It is so normal that I wish I had more control over this situation. It is so normal that I wish that things were different than they are. And this isn't going to help. It is okay for me to have an incredibly well-packed, well-stocked pantry. That is okay. It is okay for you if you similarly have some kind of a stress response that you do scratch the itch sometimes, right? But that you also are letting your brain see, I'm having feelings. I'm having a human experience that is difficult to navigate. And my brain offers me that this is the solution, but I know it's not. I know it's not. So it's okay as long as whatever that stress response is not self-destructive, right? In, in the shopping instance, um, I'm not spending excessive amounts of money. I'm not throwing away or wasting food. I'm not buying crazy things that we aren't going to need eventually. I'm not causing a problem. It's not harming anything. Also, again, not helping. But I want us to see that there is a line there, right? Of course, some of our stress responses might be things that are harming ourselves or harming another person. I'm not on board for that. But in this circumstance, right, I can look at this behavior with self-compassion and I can say it is okay. Now, I want to raise one circumstance where I do think that sometimes this becomes a problem, and that is alcohol. Friends, I love you. And it is so normal if we are turning to an extra glass of wine or some other form of alcohol in order to soothe our nervous system. It is so normal. And yet, I personally, you know, especially as an obesity medicine physician, I would throw that in the bucket of that is probably tiptoeing across the line of something that is harmful for ourselves. Now, this is my opinion. This is my expertise. And I'm not your mom. It's just like I tell my patients, I am not your mom. And I invite you to look at that behavior specifically as something that may do more harm than good and to decide what you will and won't do about it. Am I asking you to never have a drink? No, I'm not. I just want to say that that is a behavior that I personally consider to be more harmful than good. And if you find yourself slipping into a pattern where there is more and more alcohol, you are using higher and higher doses, it's very easy for that to slip into a, a problem. Okay, lecture done. Thank you. Finally, as we think about how do I compromise, how do I bring self-compassion in? I also want to mention, where am I able to throw the easy button in here? Um, Again, I'm going to reference the lazy genius, Kendra Adachi, who has one of my favorite podcasts and has written a lovely number of books that talk about the very real circumstances of navigating mostly the challenges of being a woman, navigating parenting and life challenges. But I really find her approach to be very validating. And one of the tools that she uses is the magic question. How can I make things easier for my future self? it is very easy for us to somehow be making things harder. And again, as high achievers, it's very easy for us to not allow ourselves to have things easy, right? There's a part of us that thinks that that is cheating, that that is lazy, that that is not good enough, that it is not safe, that it is not okay. We have talked before about being really clear on what our values are, being really clear on what is and is not okay or important to us. And that applies here. But if we can be very clear about those things, and if we can choose with self compassion to say, I'm going to allow myself to make some easier choices here, what would that open up for you? So it may be that in usual circumstances, you would choose to do something in a certain way. You would choose to, I don't know, do your own laundry, do your own cooking and cleaning, handwrite your notes. You just put whatever examples you want into that bucket. And it may be that, especially during a time of stress, when you are so used to doing all of those things for yourself, that you may need to decide, you know what? I'm going to give somebody else this job. I'm going to pay someone else to do that. I'm going to figure out how can I make this easier for myself? And you push the easy button, especially something that is easier for your future self, right? I'm not going to leave the choice of what's for dinner to my tired, worn out self at the end of the day, right? No, we're going to make those choices in advance. We're going to have the things. In my house, sometimes we don't do the meal preppy, like, put everything into, I don't know, 12 different containers for dinners. But if there is a dinner that needs to be jump started in advance so that it can be really easy, especially when we know that people's schedules are going to run late, we will try and do that. What can I make easier? I am so grateful that we have cleaners that come and clean the house, because cleaning the house is not something, I enjoy doing that much, especially since moving into this house, which is a lot bigger than our previous. But B, I don't want to spend my free time doing it. I don't have that much free time. I do not want to be cleaning the house. I'm so grateful that tomorrow our cleaners are coming, and they come every 2 weeks. I did not grow up having cleaners. I did not know anybody who used a cleaner when I was a kid. I'm so grateful that we jumped over that mental hurdle and hired cleaners to come and clean our house, right? I'm so grateful that I no longer have to worry about it, that I know on a regular cadence people are going to come. What else can I make easier? We talked last week about where we can throw AI tools into the mix. You can think about, what am I no longer willing to spend so much time doing? I know for that myself, I want to be present for my family. I want to make sure that I'm taking good care of myself so that I can be present for my family. I know that I want to be taking great care of my patients. And in order to do that, I know that I need to have, a smaller number of patients than certainly I had in the past. I need to incorporate tools like my AI scribe to help make things easier. And I need to have some sense of boundaries as well about what am I willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. I've talked about this before. I have a much lower threshold for sending a referral, especially for conditions that I don't have experience managing, and I could probably figure out if I had to do, but I don't want to. I don't actually want to spend my time doing that. And thankfully, I'm in a place and taking care of a population of patients who are largely resourced enough to be able to engage with specialty care. Now, I recognize that that is a privilege. And it doesn't feel like it should be, but that is a privilege that I experience compared to some other times in my medical career. You may be in a circumstance where you take care of patients who are relatively under resourced to access specialty care or referrals or anyone but you, right, taking care of them. And if that is your circumstance, what are the ways that you can make that as easy as possible for yourself that's going to look different for you compared to someone in my circumstance, right? If you are a specialist and you take care of, I don't know, let's say you're a dermatologist, right? You take care of a certain amount of things, and you're going to need to have some healthy boundaries and certain supports in place for the way that you are asked to work. You are going to need to have some internal boundaries about what you do and don't offer, what you are and are not willing to do, but also to know what your resources are and to continue to advocate for yourself of what resources do I need, right? These things are important. How can I continue to make things easier for my future self in a way that is not hustly, but that allows you to be able to do what you need to be able to do the things that are in alignment with your values, and to be sustainable? I'm very grateful that during this time in my life, during this time in my career, that I have an incredible degree of flexibility in the way that I take care of my patients. We have had so many appointments in my family with what's going on. I never would have been able to navigate this at my previous employer. I couldn't have done it because I have such a degree of flexibility, because I have such a relationship with my patients and my patients are trusting of me. I have been able to change my schedule around multiple times to be able to accommodate the appointments that I need to accommodate for my family member. If I was not in this situation, I absolutely would have needed to take medical leave because there just would not have been other ways to navigate this. And I'm not saying that taking medical leave would be wrong. It's not wrong. In my circumstances, I was able to not thus far take medical leave in order to be able to take care of what I need to be taken care of. But in my previous circumstances, I absolutely would have needed to take medical leave to be able to make the appointments that we've had to make. So again, it's thinking for myself, how can I make things easier? What am I going to do? How can I push the easy button? How can I let go of things that I had previously thought that I needed to do, but I really don't need to be doing them? How can I say no to things that really are taking up time and energy, but they are not strongly in alignment with my values, right? When you hit a difficult circumstance, again, let's go back to the breast cancer example. If you were diagnosed with breast cancer and you were needing to navigate all of these particular challenges and appointments and treatments and things, wouldn't it be easier to say no to the committee that you didn't want to be on? Wouldn't it be easier to say no, you're not going to take extra patients today because you're tired? Right. Of course it would. So thinking, how can I make things easier? How can I, again, take care of the things that are really important to me, that are in alignment with my values, so that I'm not compromising my values? I want to be present for my family. I want to take care of myself so that I can be present for my family. I want to take excellent care of my patients, but I'm not trying to build or grow anything right now, right? I'm putting that on pause because these are my goals for right now. And my ability to grow or build something right now is quite low. That's okay. It's just on pause. This work is something that, of course, unfolds as we are navigating whatever difficult circumstances we are. But it is also something that as you do more of it when things are going well, it enhances your ability for you to navigate the future challenges that inevitably come, right? So I want us to really lean into this work. If you are currently navigating a difficult circumstance in your life, whether that's you, a loved one, something going on at work, and you realize that you're pretty tapped out, how can you incorporate these ideas into what is going on right now? Keeping things easy. Again, recognizing that we have an ability to hustle, but sometimes we're just going to need to sit in the discomfort and let things unfold. Knowing that we'll have thought loops that we get stuck in and having a compassionate response to them. Allowing that we are normal humans who will have stress responses. And some of those are going to be a little bit on the maladaptive side. And we can think about, all right, a normal human who has this craving for this thing, shopping or alcohol or whatever that is, how am I going to not judge myself for having that? If it's something that is ultimately okay, am I going to allow myself, or do I need to make myself a compassionate rule of, you know what, this is the time when we don't drink any alcohol because it's just too easy to have too much? That might be another choice. And then finally, how do I make things easier for myself? How do I try and put things in place that allow me to stay in alignment with my values, navigate the difficult circumstances? If you are not currently in difficult circumstances, but you know from your lived experience what this is like, and you would like to incorporate these things, write these things down. Give yourself some examples of where this has come up in the past, choices that you've made, choices that maybe that you wish you made differently, and how you want to put things in place so that they are sustainable, so that you can be prepared for the next time this happens. Because unfortunately, it is a when is it going to happen next, not if it's going to happen next. We will always hit difficult circumstances. There's none of us, unfortunately, who gets off without life happening. My friends, I hope that this has been helpful. If you are dealing with difficult circumstances, my heart goes out to you. We are normal humans. Normal human things happen to us, even if so much of the time medicine wishes that doctors were not human. It wishes that we were much more robotic, that we didn't need to eat, drink, sleep, that we didn't need to take time off to deal with sick family members or our own illness. But we are human. We are human, and we need to honor that. Until next time, my heart goes out to you. Take care.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.